Hey, it's Clarissa here at 512 Studio, back at it again with another video. Today I want to talk about something that is very close and near and dear to my heart. Y'all don't have to excuse me, my shirt keeps coming down. It's a little awkward, I promise. I got on an undershirt though, if, it keeps falling and stuff. Anyway, wanted to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's mental health. I think that a lot of people assume that they are the only ones struggling with mental health, anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar, whatever the case is, alone. And so the thought of them doing their blog or doing a business or whatever the case is scary for them. And they feel like, oh, I have anxiety. There's no way that I can, do this. Or I have depression. There's no way I can do that. And as someone, and I'm gonna go ahead and pause right here, do a little timeout. I am not a doctor. I don't have any kind of medical license at all. The only thing I'm doing is providing information from my experience alone. Being an entrepreneur and dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, and how that's affected the growth in my business and some setbacks and some challenges. But I wanted to share this point of view because I felt like I was going at it alone for a really long time. And on Instagram, I did a poll about whether or not this should even be a conversation. And a lot of people voted yes. In fact, I believe it was unanimous. I think that's the word. It was unanimous that we talk about this. So let's break the stigma. I'm a huge fan of that. And let's go right into it. Let's not wait 6 months, a year, and then I'm like, back in the day, I dealt with depression. Nah, let's just keep it real. Let's keep it honest. So that's what we're going to do today in this video. A little bit about myself and my diagnosis. I fully believe, not to play WebMD, but I fully believe that I dealt with depression my entire life. So I'm really not sure if it's chemical or trauma induced. And by trauma, I just meant some stuff that I call it my sperm donor, but by the hands of that and that whole situation, that I dealt with at a fairly young age. So it's hard for me to say if it was that or if it was just, or if it's just chemical, because a lot of times depression can be just a chemical imbalance, and sometimes it can be induced by an event or a series of events. But I will say that I fully believe for myself that depression and later on anxiety prevented me from doing the things that I want to do. I will honestly say that in 2018, I thought that 512 Studio would be a lot further than what it is, but it isn't. And that's just the reality of the situation. And I'm not upset about it because I'm learning how to look back at everything that I've accomplished so far, and knowing that I was doing this by myself and knowing that I've been scrambling here and there to try to put things together by myself and learning things on my own. Yes, it took a little bit more time. There were a lot more failures involved, but I learned it. And now I'm able to help people like you who feel like, oh God, I'm doing this on my own and I don't know what to do. Kind of move along further and faster. Like, that's been a huge thing for me, is don't make the mistakes I did. Make the mistake, or you're gonna make mistakes, but I want you to make fewer mistakes if you can, if that makes any sense. So my depression, and I'll leave a link at the bottom about kind of a deeper depression that I went through, but my depression and my anxiety has held me back in life and in being brave and making YouTube videos and being aggressive in a positive way about going, going for the things that I want to go for, because I was scared and there was so much self-doubt. And self-doubt is normal. Being scared is normal. Being upset and sad is normal. But I think that there's the normal aspect of it where you're like, okay, I can pick myself up. I can, let's pray about it. Let's meditate about it. However you feel comfortable taking a chill pill from life. And I think there's that, but then for me, it wasn't just, okay, I'm going to pray about it. It was all or nothing kind of feeling. So it was either I'm going to do this and I'm super excited, or it was like, I'm done, I'm quitting, everybody hates it, everyone hates me, they think I'm terrible, I'm a failure, like, why am I even here, why am I existing? So that's kind of just how I want to separate the two. And when it comes to like, oh, Clarissa, that's not depression, that's self-doubt. Like I said before, I knew and I know for a while that I've been dealing with it, and it was untreated for a long time. I believe I've been treating it for 2 years with therapy and medication. And anxiety is kind of the same way. I always felt weird that I wasn't this super duper outgoing person, that being in crowds scared me, that there would be like heart racing, whatever, and constant worrying to the point that it was paralyzing. And again, it stopped me from launching projects, and it stopped me from connecting with people that I wanted to connect with. And I know that there are opportunities that I missed out on. Now, talking about this and getting help and getting treatment for other things that triggered that feeling has allowed me to tell this and not be, sorry, I kicked a stand, so it was a little shaky for a second. It's allowed me to be transparent and be honest about where my failures have happened and why I haven't reached out for help until now, or until then, because it's been about a year or so. But I know that if I weren't treated, I don't even know if I would be in front of this video doing a YouTube video. Like, the fact that I'm in front of a camera scares me to death, but at the same time, I want to do it because I know it's another way to connect with my audience. So taking care of your mental health is super important, and taking care of yourself, taking a break, unplugging from social media, especially now. There's just so much crazy stuff going on in the world. On top of comparing yourself to somebody in your own niche, in your own field, it's so overwhelming. So you have to just say, you know what, I'm going to tend to my plants, or I'm going to paint, and it doesn't have to be good. I'm just going to do it. Or I'm going to clean out this because it helps me focus, and it helps me calm down, and it helps me kind of gather. It's okay to take a break, because mentally you need to take breaks. So, don't be afraid of doing that if you get to the point of feeling completely overwhelmed in your business and feeling overwhelmed just in life. Don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to text someone, because they want to hear from you. No matter what your head is saying, like, they do want to hear from you, and they do want to make sure you're okay and that you're alive and that you're doing well. And if you're not doing well, talk to them about it. Explain to them about it. But to kind of come a little bit back to myself, I dealt with depression to really scary points, and I was ready to be like, you know what, 512 was fun, but not doing it anymore. And I was almost ready to settle on things. I was ready to settle for a standard job. I was ready to just kind of be what I called low on a totem pole, which I've learned in the last year and a half that I actually hate how people put others on totem poles. So I'm not going to do that again. But I like my anxiety to the point of like I wasn't networking because there are people out there. And in talking with my therapist, I learned that it's not so much that I don't need to be out there with people. I have to communicate with people, right? But I can make a plan to where communicating with people is easier. So For example, if I know of a networking event in 2 weeks, I can take 2 weeks to plan, and then I can have a course of action, bring a friend if I feel comfortable to, and say, hey, let's leave in an hour if it completely sucks. And I've done that the last few times, and it's actually really worked, and I felt comfortable because I was around people, or I was around someone who wasn't afraid to break the ice and make those introductions. And I think that's always the scariest. But when you have anxiety, you feel like everything is against you. You feel like the world is against you. You feel like, oh my God, I'm afraid to do this because they're gonna look at my stuff and they're gonna say that it sucks, and then they're not gonna wanna work with me. Or you look at your numbers and your analytics, and of course, if you're just starting out, it's not gonna be as high as somebody who has a social media agency to help them connect with other brands as influencers. But when you take a step back and you breathe, Instagram girl with 2 million followers either legitimately built that up over time, especially before the algorithms kicked in on Instagram, or they're bot, and then that's a whole other story you don't want to go into. So if you think about it rationally, and if you word correctly, and don't ever be afraid to reach out and say, hey, I want to talk to you about X, Y, and Z. I have this plan. I'm worried about my numbers, but what if I do? How can I show that I'm still a good fit to represent this brand? And if you can do that and you look at it from that perspective, again, going back to your why, if you look at it from that perspective, you're able to shut down that negative thought in your head about, okay, all right, so I don't have 2 million followers, but I communicate with my 500 followers that I do have on Instagram. We engage. We chat it up in the DMs, like all this stuff. Like, there's so many ways that you can say, hey, my small following allows me to have more of a deeper connection to everyone in my audience, which is really great for your brand because X, Y, and Z. So there's so many ways that you can take what you think is a failure and you can actually make it into something positive. Again, when, if you're dealing with anxiety and depression and that's not what you're thinking in your head at the time, you're just thinking that you suck because you don't have as many followers as so-and-so. So again, stop looking at your competition. Don't study them to the point that it makes you upset and that it makes you want to quit. Look at it in a perspective of, hey, I'm small, but I'm feisty. I'm small, but I can fight. I'm small, but I can do so many great things being small. And being small is not a bad thing. We've kind of accumulated this idea that the more the better, but sometimes that's not it. And one great thing that one of my favorite influencers, bloggers, Maddie James said was, if you can't nurture your audience, and I'm paraphrasing, but if you can't nurture the audience that you have now, how are you going to be able to handle a bigger audience? And that's so true. If you have a small audience and you're ignoring them, you don't need to have a big audience because you're going to be ignoring them, right? And not to get off course with it, but it's just when I'm challenging, and I have to challenge myself this literally every single day, is to put some cognitive behavior in your thought, right? So when you start thinking the negative about something, try to flip that into a positive. Try to make that be something that can work to your advantage. And if it doesn't work with one, that's okay. It's not you. It's probably a lot of times just expectation. They say, hey, if we're going to put a budget out for this amount of people or to work with these people, we need to make sure that these people have at least this. And if you don't fall in that category, it's not your fault. It's just what is. And then again, it's about having a strategy and a plan to go further so that you can turn around in 6 months to a year and say, hey, guess what? I built up that following and then some. So anyway, as I was saying before, and you can go back and you can really make things a challenge for you. When you're starting out in a business, especially if you're starting out on your own, it's a difficult thing. Not only is it difficult just because you're starting out, it's difficult because there are people in your family who don't understand. There are friends who don't understand. I've had family members tell me that I need to, get a 9 to 5 and work and make my way up the corporate ladder and then meet my husband and then get married. And that sounds really terrible. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, let me go back. If that is the choice for you, then I am 110% on guard. I'm your cheerleader. I'm gonna rah you until all your dreams come true. But one of the reasons why I wanted to start my own business was because I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself these opportunities without having to, fight the things that you have to fight for in corporate. And I'm not here to tell you that corporate America is terrible and it's bad and all this other stuff. I just never felt like I fit into a structure that is traditional. That's just never been me. And that's actually something I talked about in therapy. Was I always felt like a black sheep in my family and with my friends and in life, because I don't fit this particular structure of needing to be this and be that, and feeling like you don't fit in is a lot of where my depression stems in. So when I started my business, one of the things that I realized was, man, I don't fit into this group or that group. And it almost felt like high school again. And it was very depressing, because if I didn't have the pink this and peonies in my, is that what the flowers are? Whatever, it sounds really weird. But if I didn't have that in all my Instagram pictures, then like I wasn't really known as a true blogger. And how, can I be seen as one thing or another? And then I had to get a grip on myself. Like, girl, that's just not you. Like, you've never liked the color pink. So why should you start now? I'm fine with pink for other people, but it's just not for me. And I don't need to be sorry about it. I don't need to be apologetic about it. It's not hurting anyone. You're not doing anything because you don't like a certain color for your brand. Like, it's okay. And so you have to give yourself grace when you feel like you don't fit in. And that is one of the huge things that you should remember as an entrepreneur, is to give yourself grace when you make a mistake, or you feel like you don't fit in, or you feel like you don't fit into this type or that type. And you're not supposed to. It's why you're an entrepreneur. It's why you're a creative. You're a creative person no matter what you're doing, because you want to beat to the rhythm of your own drum. And that is awesome. You don't want to be a particular type of whatever particular type of person you felt like you should be. You don't want to be. You're rebelling against, and that's okay. As long as you're being productive in your rebellion, you're fine. So what you're doing, you're meant to be doing for a reason. And it's going to be hard sometimes, and it's going to be scary, and you're going to get rejected, and it's going to hurt, and you're going to cry, and you're going to be like, I quit. You're going to shut down the computer and go, this sucks, and you're going to push it away from you, but not like off the desk because you don't want to break it, because then you'll have to buy a new one. But you're going to go through things that are not always fun. It's not always the positive all the time, 110%. And that's okay. It's fine. Just know that you're okay, and know that you're fine. And that if you're afraid that you're going to do something that's going to be super harmful to yourself, that there are so many resources out there that you can call and you can talk to somebody anonymously. It doesn't have to be religious-based. It can be religious-based if you want to. But know that the life of someone wanting to start their own in a world where you're told that you're supposed to fit in this way and that way, that's been ingrained in us since we were in, preschool, that we're supposed to do this and we're supposed to do that, and we're now adults learning how to rebel against that. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take some cognitive thinking for us to say, hey, you know what? No, I'm not supposed to fit in, and that's okay. I'm not supposed to have this particular style in my life, and that's okay. What you're supposed to be doing, you started for a reason. It's placed in your heart for a reason. You go back to it for a reason. Let that be what drives you. When you wipe your tears, when everything is all said and done, remember your why. I know. but remember it, go back to it, and then go back to work. And then realize that that's just a bump in the road, that one day you're going to be able to tell somebody else and you're going to be able to pass on that information. And whenever you see someone that needs help, one of the good things that I realize I feel good about doing is helping them. So if someone on my timeline, for example, feels like giving up, or they, are having a bad moment or feeling stressed out about something, I try to reach out and I try to say, hey, keep going. You got this. Take a break, whatever the case is. Let them know that you're available to talk if you're genuine about it. Don't be disingenuous about wanting to help someone and they reach out and you ignore them. But also realize, like, you really aren't alone. And there's an organization there's a saying that it does get better from the Trevor Project, but it does. It really does. And again, just know that we've all gone through it. We're all going to go through it. We're all going to feel like we're not enough. We're all going to feel like we've got to constantly compete and hustle and all this other stuff. But it's okay to take care of yourself. Go run, do some yoga, stretch, walk, whatever it is that you need to do to kind of ease your mind and do find a balance. It's why you're working and doing stuff for yourself, because you want a new type of balance in your life that you weren't getting before. So there are resources that I love that I'm going to put at the bottom in the description. I'll put that post down there as well. Like I said before, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a licensed psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not any of those things. I'm just a person who deals with depression, who deals with anxiety, who also runs her own business, who's taking chances every day and has been to the bottom, is trying to get to the top, and I know what it's like to be scared. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, leave them below. If you want to DM me personally, I'll leave my email address as well. But just understand that there are certain things that I can't address that I have to pass along. So, and I want to put that in this video because we are targeting mental health things, and I want to be very clear what I can and can't help on, obviously. But just know that, I'm rooting for you if you feel like no one else is. So that's all for today's video. Again, make sure you subscribe at the bottom or subscribe at the subscribe button. Yeesh. Leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, tell your friends about it, share it on social media, and we will talk soon.